Hi all and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be going over all the different gangs in Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone. There are 12 unique gangs that each have their own little quirks and fun little things they do. This video will exist as a basic rundown pitch for each gang, and to make this easier to understand, I will also real quick go over a few basic rules and terms that will come up more than often. Combat Zone runs on an I-Go-You-Go type system that has players take turns activating a miniature then passing to the next. Each miniature has tokens on them that are green and yellow that they use to do actions. Green dice are a d12, yellows are d8s. When you get wounded, one of those dice gets switched out with a red token. When you fail a save with a red token, then your character is gone, eliminated from the game, dead, etc. The system is based on a risk-reward idea. Yes, you can fully exhaust all your unit's activations, but then you can't react if you get wounded, or use the abilities on its card depending on what the abilities are. All of these gangs are going to be based off the general idea that you're going to be going off of 100 eddies, which is the recommended starting size for these gangs. And all models are considered to be equipped with a basic melee and ranged weapon, but can specialize in different types of combat. So, if you see someone who has, for instance, a grenade launcher, then they can still do a melee attack or a non-grenade launcher basic ranged attack. Also, there are something called gonks that are in the game. Gonks are kind of a grunt-type unit, and I'll run over them in the Zoners breakdown, as they have a lot of abilities that affect them. Also, most of these gangs have expansion packs that add multiple new minis as well. For instance, the Bozos or the Lawmen, or even the Edgerunners all have multiple different variations that you can get. Starting with the Tiger Claws, one of the better gangs by just rules alone. They are kind of a jack-of-all-trades gang that sometimes feels like the master of all of them. The Tiger Claws are 98 eddies for the whole gang, so you can run the entire gang plus one upgrade most of the time without any problems. As a gang leader, we have the Oyabon. She is an extremely solid leader, as she lets you chain activate by activating another friendly Tiger Claw model immediately after her. She has a really good katana with deadly crits, Pierce 2 and Dangerous, which is just fantastic. 2 reflex, which lets her dodge, 2 melee, which means she's really good at melee. So really get her in, cut something up, 2 green, 1 yellow. It's going to be really hard to do anything to her. Up next, we have the Kyodai. For an 8 eddy unit, the Kyodai has 2 yellow, which is pretty good, and can react when any friendly model within red is wounded instead of the target, which means in a melee all-out brawl with his deadly crits, he's a pretty good choice. All in all, not the best, not the worst they have. Up next, we have Onisan, who gives you a very good mid-range. With her rapid 2 bullets, you're going to be shooting a lot. You can get 4 attacks off if you activate her at the right time. And here we have Ronin Assassin, who is a really good melee fighter, who is really, really hard to hit, with 3 yellows and the ability to move yellow free with katanas that have deadly crits. He is an absolute, utter powerhouse in melee. I have seen this model take down so many others with ease, and it is surprisingly hard to knock him down when his reflex is 3. The Ronin Sniper is really good. While no rivals are within yellow, his ranged attacks gain accurate, which lets him reroll attacks. The really good sniper with deadly crits. He is the exact opposite of the Ronin Assassin. Someone you can sit up on a corner, give a good line of sight corridor, and just take pot shots the entire game, who is also kind of hard to pin down and kill. Next up is the Wakagashira. He is pretty good at being okay. He has a decent reflex, a melee, an okay melee weapon, a green dice, which is really good for his point cost, and he can sometimes flip his tokens whenever the opponent inspires the team, depending on how you've done it. Which means this model usually wants to be one of the first to activate, so you get that bonus. All in all, a pretty decent model. It's not my favorite, but it's really just not my favorite because everything else in the Tiger Claw gang is so good. Next up, we have Maelstrom, one of the other 2 gangs that come in the main set. They are built to use cyberware and other upgrades along with the main squad. The cards are kind of more melee focused, and the gang are 76 eddies, so you have 24 eddies to upgrade them with the cyberware and other things that they excel at using. Starting with their leader, the Warlord, he is pretty good in melee and can refresh action tokens and brawls if he hurts people. But again, not necessarily the best, not necessarily the worst, just pretty good. His SMG is okay, but you really want to give him a good melee weapon. The Berserker is an absolutely amazing melee powerhouse for the price. His melee attacks can gain accurate if they're the first thing you do. He also can heal with his little nice healing skill, which is a big surprise. For the point cost, this is an absolutely fantastic melee unit. Crusher is a hard-hitting, heavily armored Maelstrom unit. He is absolutely fantastic at melee, he ignores unwieldy on gear, and he gets deadly crits on cybernetic weapons. So gearing him up with something that has unwieldy is the best way to go 9 times out of 10. And he just so happens to have a fun little grenade launcher on his back. At least that's how I read it, so do with that what you will. Absolutely amazing mini. Next up we have the Flenser, who is your chain activator for the gang. They are able to activate a friendly model using Mind Link, and they have a pretty decent skill in there as well. They have an okay weapon that Wolvers that give you deadly crits in melee, but this is more a model you want to use strategically, but can still give a pretty good push or punch to your gang. Range Specialist is one of the strongest ranged units in the game, aside from maybe the Arasaka Heavy Gunner. With 3 yellows and a rapid 2 assault rifle, and being able to allow friendly gonks to move yellow, he is a absolute powerhouse for Maelstrom, and very much works into that idea that the Maelstrom work well with gonks sometimes, but not all the time. And finally, we have the Ripper, a pretty good all-round unit that's good at melee, and gets a +1 to its melee if another friendly model is visible. A good team worker who is, again, ready for more upgrades and more things it can do. Arasaka is a teamwork-heavy elite gang with the focus on elite play. With 105 eddies for the whole gang, you're usually playing about 1 model down. But with Arasaka, that doesn't matter as much, as all of their models pack a really big punch. Starting off with your leader, we have the Arasaka team lead, an absolutely fantastic melee unit that can shred through anyone. Its attacks get stronger when you react, which is amazing, because it means once you get him into a melee, if any damage is done to him or any allies, he hits so much harder. Next up is the Heavy Assault Response unit. It is exactly what it sounds like, an absolutely fantastic Rapid 2 heavy SMG, with 2 green dice as well, means you're getting a lot of really hard to miss shots out there. Absolutely fantastic, and can move red for free sometimes. The absolute powerhouse of the Arasaka gang, the Heavy Support Operative. With a rapid 3 deadly crits complex unwieldy unit, he is shooting so many shots. Sometimes the minigun can blow up in his face, but more often than not, I have seen this guy take out 2 or 3 enemy models in a shooting turn, and it is always amazing when that actually manages to happen. Absolutely fantastic model. Point Man is a really, really, really good team play Arasaka miniature. With 3 yellows, pretty decent ranged, and a pretty good ability to heal, along with a good SMG that has the suppression keyword, and the ability to pass his reactions along, it's just a good unit. Now, as a note, for a friendly model to use one of his tokens to react instead of him reacting or the friendly model reacting, they do have to have a token that has not yet been used. You cannot have a fully exhausted unit use one of the Point Man's tokens, as clarified in an FAQ. The Tactical Response Specialist is a lot of fun, and after a visible friendly model within yellow suffers a wound, they get a free red move. This can be used to some good effect. However, like a lot of Arasaka, he's just good at ranged, has a suppressed SMG, and is all around a pretty good model. However, he is one of the first I normally drop, but that's just because of the point values I play at. I haven't used him as much as others. And last up, we have the Technical Specialist, another model that can risk for wounds, and instead use a different stat to shoot with instead, that 2 tech skill. Pretty okay, but set up to be a net runner, very much made for extra points to be spent, or to be lovingly built up over the course of campaign play. And here we have the Zoners. The Zoners excel at hitting multiple enemy models and buffing friendly gonks, which means that they are not going to have as many good things going for them unless you include gonks, which I highly recommend purchasing them if you actually go with the Zoners. I absolutely love how almost modern they look, as in modern day today, while still giving that nice cyberpunk aesthetic. And for those of you who are wondering what gonks are, now is as good a time as any, because we're going to be going over this a lot. Gonks are like a grunt type model you can include. They're much cheaper, usually about 5 eddies, and they don't do as much. However, in the game of Combat Zone, you have moments where you inspire your team, which means you flip all your inactive tokens to active and do nothing else. Gonks move during the Inspire team step. However, zoners have a lot of stuff that let them move and shoot and do other things in the not Inspire team step. Zoners in total cost 115 eddies, so just like Arasaka, you're going to be playing one model down most of the time, but in higher level play, these guys can really shine, especially with all the buffing they give gonks. Starting with the Street King, he has a pretty straightforward buff. He can activate another friendly zoner. Also, pretty good pistols. They have accurate built in, letting him reroll those D12s automatically. Really good unit. Next up is Alpha. A really surprisingly not as hard-hitting model as it seems, as they don't have any range specialties. However, they do have a tech specialty and an influence specialty, which is pretty okay. And all friendly gonks within red may also move the color they move. So if you stick the Alpha in the middle of a whole bunch of gonks, all of a sudden, your gonks are moving greens left and right. We have Blaze, who gives the fun little buff of when activating a friendly gonk within red may immediately take one action, which is fantastic. It's just a free action. They also have a Molotov cocktail, which is an amazing grenade that can do so much damage and is absolutely brutal. 40 Mike is an absolutely powerhouse unit for the zoners. With a grenade launcher coming built into the sheet with blast, difficult, indirect, and unwieldy, 40 Mike can take out multiple models very easily. Now, it all depends on how well you roll on your blast token, but they are an absolute utter threat on the battlefield, as is anything with a grenade launcher or a blast token. Next up are the Bozos, an absolutely amazingly fun gang. They manipulate luck tokens. Luck tokens are something all people have. They're kind of free rerolls. Normally, you just start with 3. However, the Bozos manipulate those 3. They start with 104 eddies, so in a friendly game, sometimes you can just convince your opponent to buy 4 eddies worth of gear, or you just drop one of the cheaper ones of the Bozos. They also have a lot of alt gangs that allow for more options as well that I will go over in a later video. Starting up with Big Top, we have our leader. A fun leader. Whenever a visible Bozo uses the loot gear or loot goods action, you gain a luck token, which means you can farm luck tokens very easily. Now, Big Top also attacks enemy gonks. If you get in melee with an enemy gonk and succeed in your attack, you can replace the target gonk with a gonk under your control. Big Top also heals. Big Top is a very big support leader. He also works best when gonks are on the field. If not, he just can't use half of his rules. Next up, we have Blammo. When Blammo is redlined and taken out of play, he blows up. I absolutely love Blammo. Blammo's a very fun enemy to toss into melee, and then no one really wants to hit him, and he can hit, and then when he goes down, he blows up. Blammo is fun. We have our 2 dual models up next with Dead Ringers. Dead Ringers have a lot of rules, and it kind of sucks because they're both simple and complicated, but they're a neat concept. They hit hard, and they can confuse the enemy, which is really good to have. Our Jester is a fun little unit. They are pretty good at tech and melee right off the bat, and when the model's activation ends, all friendly Bozos visible to it may move red, and then you can also use luck to further manipulate that and get a free attack out of it. Totally worth it. Next up, we have Organ Grinder. Whenever Organ Grinder fumbles, you gain a luck token, which cannot be used to reroll the fumble, and because their melee weapon has unwieldy, there is a pretty good chance that that will hurt them. However, if you fumble on a ranged attack or a dodge, etc., that can get you a free luck token without maybe being as bad. A pretty darn good model and a fun little model to have, as a clown with a chainsaw is I mean, it's a classic. And next up with Prankster on the gang, we have a fun little buff unit. As when a visible character fumbles, he may refresh an action token. Good to probably keep him close to Organ Grinder. A pretty okay ranged attack, and has a special ranged weapon that makes you get rid of gear. Against Maelstrom, this can be absolutely deadly and really mess with the enemy. And an absolutely classic gang. The Edgerunners have multiple variants. Part 1 is 100 eddies exactly. There are 3 Edgerunners boxes. If I were to go over all of them, I would be saying kind of the same thing for a lot of them. The Edgerunners are a very interesting gang. They work in cohesion with each other in fun ways, and they work the best when you buy multiple boxes or multiple of the expansions and mix and match, which means they have a slightly higher buy-in to run them near perfectly. But considering the first box is 100 eddies exactly, you just grab and you play what you have without any problems. Industrial Tech Supervisor is the leader of your unit, and gives models within green of you attacks that have accurate if they are cyber characters. And he can heal. So a pretty good and decent all-round leader unit, focusing on buffing as many of the leaders do. The classic Rocket Boy is an amazing mind game mini. It forces your enemy to activate a specific unit, so if used correctly, you can get them to waste a last activation token they were saving to react against you, etc. An amazing mind game and tactical unit. Absolutely fantastic. The Neural-Linked Netrunner is an Edgerunner that works best when put in other ganks, as they buff friendly visible gonks, but as of this moment, I don't believe Edgerunners have any gonks that they can bring. However, considering it is a Netrunner, if you play at a higher eddies cost, you can easily get him extra programs that actually do things you want or would need. And something to keep in mind, if you see the merc keyword on any of these sheets, it means they can be taken in any gang as a merc, which is good to keep in mind, especially when looking at this mini. I think this is a perfect Netrunner to use in almost any of the other gangs we have covered. Next up, we have the Nomad Scout. The Nomad Scout can be kept in reserve and brought out, which is really good because there's not a ton of things that actually go in reserve. They also start with an automatic shotgun, which is one of the best shotguns in the game. A good powerhouse that can do things most models can't. Solo Stalker is an absolutely fantastic ranged unit, with a 2 bonus to his ranged attacks, the ability to move yellow for free, and a really good SMG. The Solo Stalker is a good range specialist that the Edgerunners need to be a cohesive unit. And the Well-Connected Fixer is another good buff unit that allows you to refresh action tokens on a visible friendly character with a pistol that has deadly crits. A really good unit, and a lot of fun that rounds out the entire Edgerunner crew. The Lawmen are another gang I have played extremely extensively. They work very well in teams of 2 or 3 as they have a lot of buffs that benefit people near them, and I will go over those as we go through the unit. They are also 100 eddies exactly in the starter box, so this is another box that you can just unbox and play without any worries about having to buy extra items. Starting with Maximum Mike, one of the best models in the game and an amazing homage, Maximum Mike is a really, really good leader. With his pole rank ability, and the ability to choose a rival where all attacks against them get accurate, Maximum Mike is an amazing support and buff unit while still having a nice little punch to him with the 2 ranged. The only negative to pole rank is it's not automatic like the Oiban or the Zoner leaders. Next up we have the Sarge, the next big buffing machine. He has 2 armor, 2 ranged, and allows Lawmen within red to use its skill modifiers instead of their own. So very much buffs the people around him. And the Suppression Assault Carbine is a pretty good weapon. Next up we have the Canine Handler, who as a reminder's range skill will go up by 1 if kept near the Sarge. The Canine Handler activates in tandem with the Canine, and you alternate actions between the Canine and the model, with a Suppression Assault Carbine as well. The Canine is an absolute utter melee powerhouse. The model can only make basic melee and move actions, however with 2 to hit and a 3 dodge, and the melee crits are deadly, the Canine can run up and absolutely shred an enemy. Next up we have the Police Sniper, a really good sniper model that is not as good as the Ronin Assassin, but still pretty good. A deadly crit sniper rifle with the ability to get accurate and a 2 range skill is still a good sniper. And next up, we have our attack response officer. He may react when any friendly model within red is wounded instead of the target, and considering he has attack shield and is very much in a place where giving him a shotgun would be good, it's a pretty darn good unit. Also, the ability to heal is fantastic in any gang, and a 2 bonus to heal is really good. Generation Red are the young blood of the streets. Coming in at 93 eddies, they are a very fun gang with the ability to give some upgrades without too much of a problem. They also work best when used in tandem with their gonks or other items. First up, we have Apex, the leader of Gen Red. Apex allows loot cards to be used twice and has a very complicated move that forces someone to take an action if wounded. All around, a good leader model with good ranged, good melee, and good influence skill. Blades is up next. They are your melee powerhouse, and considering that if you get a crit, you get to hit multiple times with them, an absolute amazing crit fishing model. That somehow manages to get a free move as well. High Stick is someone you just want to give a lot of grenades to. That is what you want to spend those extra 7 eddies on. They are fantastic with grenades. Give them grenades. Izzy is a very risky mini. You want them to shoot outside of cover, but is it really worth shooting outside of cover? Also, with concealed automatic pistols with Rapid 2, it is very possible to move them out of cover, get 2 shots off, and move them back into cover so they are harder to get to. Something to keep in mind, but a really interesting and unique model. We have Tetra, who has a commando rocket launcher pretty much. All actions this model takes using equipped loot gain accurate, so you want them to loot all of the time, and they have a rocket launcher. If you can't tell, every time I praise someone having a rocket launcher, it's because rocket launchers are really good in this game. And considering that if the rocket launcher deals a wound, you get to refresh an action token, it is a very, very strong synergy. And finally, we have Wheelie, one of the only characters to get a vehicle until the most recent Kickstarter. Wheelie can move around when targeted by an attack, which costs a luck token, but makes them extremely fun to use. Because do you really want to try attacking me? Am I really going to spend that luck token to get away from that attack? How are you going to get to me? It's fun. I like it a lot. Overall, they also hit pretty hard with that 2 range skill, because not everyone has 2 range, and round out the Gen Red gang very well. The 6th Street gang is a newer starter gang, and they work very interestingly. They are a synergy of buffs to each other and a weird treatment of obstacles, as many of them do not worry as much about obstacles or get extra bonuses for climbing or don't take fall damage, etc. They also have a lot of movement tech. Every member of 6th Street can also be taken with the Zoners or the Lawmen, making this a ridiculously versatile gang that can be used in multiple ways. At 98 eddies total, you can maybe fit in 1 upgrade for them. Starting with the Watch Captain, we have a long-range sniper leader who can take a free shot at visible rivals whenever they take out a fellow teammate. He also can heal. An interesting dichotomy is you want him far away, but he can also hit and heal pretty well. Next up, we have another sniper who does not take any damage from falling, has a really good range skill, and has accurate built into his sniper. All in all, a real good ranged threat. Next up, we have Trapper, who has a very unique skill in making the area around them dangerous terrain. With a pretty decent pistol with deadly crits, an okay range skill, and a really good dodge skill, this model is something that wants to go as close to the enemy as possible without being taken out, or lock down an area of the map. Wingman is a really good close-range powerhouse with decent armor and a decent range skill that also gets a benefit when friendly models get wounded and is able to move red for free. We have our 3rd sniper of the group, the Street Ranger, who also can heal. However, they have Rapid 2, and they can shoot into brawls without risking hitting other brawling targets, which is so good, but this skill is better for the Zoners than 6th Street, or the Lawmen than 6th Street, which this model can be taken in either gang as well. And finally, we have our melee powerhouse Demolisher. Demolisher is good at ignoring or pretty much passing any chest against the obstacle die, and they get a +2 on attack opposed by the obstacle die, which means that they just get a +2 whenever they do an obstacle die type thing. Also, with the battering ram giving you stun 1, crits, and push, you can shove people off buildings and have fun looking up the fall damage rules, which are pretty fun and unique in this game. And now we have the Piranhas for our starter gangs. The Piranhas can be taken in the Piranhas, the Zoners, or the Bozos, making them, again, another very versatile gang. And these newer gangs seem to really like the Zoners, giving them extra buffs and fun little things by letting you mix and match units from 3 different gangs now. The Piranhas are your head-banging ravers, and have a fun of little interesting unique roles among all the models to make them stand out. Coming in at 105 eddies, you might need to drop 1 model to play normally, or just convince your opponent to buy 5 eddies worth of gear. The block boss gives the buff Party Hard. It allows all of your models to take the action, and Party Hard stuns all rivals within range. Absolutely amazing. Such a good skill. It is linked to Influence, or that fun little exclamation point skill. So the block boss is fantastic at it, and good luck avoiding it. Headbangers get free moves when you inspire your team, and has Mosh Fists, which gain deadly and dangerous when the attack is used with a red dice, which is a really interesting weapon that it gets stronger the more you get hurt. Raver has a very similar skill, where if you use a red dice, your model gets deadly crits along with accurate, so if you take a wound on them, they get so much more threatening. A pretty decent all-around model and skills, as they get bonus to range, melee, and influence. The Reveler is a really fun model, as when they become redline, they refresh all of their action tokens, and they can use drugs on themselves to heal themselves as well. So, not that bad, as you can redline, refresh all your action tokens, heal yourself, and take a yellow token. Next up, we have our only Rapid 4 weapon in the game that I know of. I haven't looked through all the upgrade cards, at least on a default specialist. We have Chuckles. Chuckles can use a luck token to get deadly crits on the model's attacks until the end of its activations. They also have a Rapid 4 minigun that has Bulky. With only 2 yellow actions, you're technically getting less shots than the Arasaka heavy gunner. However, 8 shots on 2 yellows for 20 points is ridiculously good, and definitely worth the effort. And to finish out the gang, we have another Reveler, who, when he becomes redline, he refreshes all of the action tokens with the same illicit substances that can heal him as well. Exactly the same as the other model, not much more to comment. And the most recent gang to release, the Wild Things. This is our last gang for this video. The Wild Things cost 103 eddies total, and are pretty darn good melee specialists. They have okay ranged, but they are good at getting in and punching hard. First up, we have our leader, Whirly Girl. Whirly Girl is really good at dodging, really good at punching, and has an AoE melee weapon, so charging them into as many enemies as possible is absolutely worth it. They are also immune to stun, and when you use a red move, you move yellow instead. An absolute melee powerhouse of a leader. Next up, we have Chauffeur, a driver, and considering vehicles are becoming more relevant in the game, not a bad model to take. Range attacks must target the driver instead of passengers, which focus all hits onto them, and they have a pretty okay melee weapon that is Pierce 2, Stun 1 on crits. So, very good, very nice model. Now we have the Bouncer, who has a really fun skill. He's absolutely fantastic at melee and dodging, and if he drags a rival, that rival just suffers 1 damage, so you want to be dragging rivals around with your Bouncer. Bruiser is exactly what he sounds like. A absolute amazing melee bruiser. I feel like I'm repeating myself so much with this gang, because all of them just do something different that is so good in melee. When this model suffers damage, it may move red. When the model damages a rival with a melee attack, you get to refresh an action token. You can react and hit someone, and then just get that token back and activate them next. Or if you get really lucky with your dice, you can take out 2 or 3 models theoretically. Again, getting really lucky with your dice. Considering he has 2 greens, that's not too hard, and a +3 is really big in this game. Babyface is a movement buff monster. They allow friendly models to move red when they make an easy move, and they have a really good suplex move that is difficult in stun 1 and gains steadily against targets within reach. Also, melee, pretty darn good. Can heal, which is interesting, but can be good. And influence is always useful. And finally, we have Brutalizer. Brutalizer is really, really good. Yes, they have a difficult, deadly stun 1 sledgehammer. However, for the more wounds they take, the more bonuses against opposed attack rolls they get. And considering they're going to be in melee and already have 3 melee skill, if they are redlined, they're getting a +5 to their rolls, which is absolutely amazing. I love the Wild Things so much, and I can't wait to get them in hand and actually paint them up and use them on the table. Thank you for watching this video. This was a lot of fun to make and took me a lot longer to make than I thought it would, hence why this is about a week late. But I hope this video does well so I can make even more content about Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone, one of my personal favorite skirmish war games I have ever played. Hopefully this convinced some of you to try the game out, or at least got you interested enough to maybe watch the other video I made about it, giving a kind of basic overview of the gang and the starter box that I have up in the corner now. Have a wonderful weekend all, and I'll see all of you next week with another video.